I was standing on my porch when I spotted them. 3 HOA enforcers decked out in their khaki uniforms, striding across my lawn like they were on a sacred mission from some bland, beige purgatory. They carried a chainsaw, its jagged teeth glinting in the sunlight, and they were headed straight for my tree, my majestic, awe-inspiring oak. They eyed it like it was some kind of criminal, a weed that dared to defy their sterile suburban order. I froze, my mind racing. This couldn't be real. They wouldn't dare, would they? But then they stopped at the base of the tree, revved the chainsaw, and that's when something inside me broke. I'm not a violent guy. Usually, I'm more of a sarcastic quip-in-the-background type, but seeing those HOA goons with their smug faces and their weapon of destruction aimed at my tree flipped a switch. Shock morphed into disbelief, disbelief into anger, and anger into a raw, primal need to protect what was mine. This wasn't just any tree. This oak was a legend, ancient, wise, and gorgeous. It had been the heart of my front yard forever, practically family. It shaded me in summer, blazed with color in fall, and housed a bustling community of squirrels and birds. It was my tree. I bolted off the porch, hollering something incoherent, probably a mix of "get away from my tree" and pure, unfiltered rage. I charged at them like a madman, ready to wrestle that chainsaw away with my bare hands if I had to. I must have looked insane, a wild, tree-defending lunatic. They froze, startled by my sudden outburst. Their eyes darted from me to the tree and back again, a flicker of surprise, maybe even fear, crossing their faces. Good. They should be scared. What the hell do you think you're doing? I shouted, my voice trembling with fury. Get away from my tree. Now, they muttered something about neighborhood standards and overgrown vegetation, but I wasn't hearing it. All I could see was red, my only thought protecting my beautiful, irreplaceable oak. They weren't touching it. Not today, not ever. The rage still simmered, but as I stood there, glaring daggers at them, a brilliant, absurd, perfect idea sparked in my brain. They wanted a clean aesthetic? Fine. I'd give them one, but not the kind they expected. If they were dumb enough to threaten my tree, I'd make them regret it with something so bold, so outrageous, so gloriously unruly that it'd blow their minds. A treehouse. Not just any treehouse, a luxury treehouse. A towering, multi-level masterpiece with lights, a balcony, maybe even a spiral staircase. A canopy palace so grand, so ridiculous, it had become a neighborhood icon. A giant, leafy screw you to the HOA and their beige tyranny. It was perfect, petty, over the top, and exactly what they deserved. The chainsaw trio stood there, looking uneasy. They must have sensed the shift, the primal fury fading into something sharper, more dangerous, a plan. I grinned, slow and deliberate, the kind of smile that probably made their stomachs drop. You know, I said, my voice eerily calm, I've been thinking this tree's a little underappreciated. Time to spruce it up a bit, don't you think? They swapped nervous glances, probably expecting a birdhouse or something tame. They had no clue what was coming. They'd just unleashed a monster, a treehouse-shaped monster, and it was going to be epic. Operation Treehouse was officially underway. I needed an architect, but not just any architect, someone bold enough to embrace the wild, unconventional genius of my vision. Someone who'd build not just a treehouse, but a luxury treehouse so stunning it'd make the HOA choke on their rulebooks. I hit the internet, scouring portfolios for someone with an open mind who wouldn't laugh me out of the room. That's when I found her, Lydia. Her website showcased sleek, innovative designs that blended nature with modern flair. She'd even done a few small tree houses, not on my scale, but still. She was my kind of crazy. I called her up, spilling the whole saga. The HOA, the chainsaw, my near meltdown. She listened, her initial shock turning to curiosity. A treehouse wrapping the whole tree? She asked, a mix of disbelief and excitement in her voice. Exactly, I said. Big. Luxurious. All the bells and whistles. There was a pause, then a laugh. I'm in, she said. Music to my ears. We met at my place a few days later. She stood under my oak, staring up at it with wide-eyed awe. This tree's incredible, she said. It's perfect. I laid out my dream. A multi-level treehouse with a balcony, a spiral staircase, custom lighting, the works. A little castle in the branches. Lydia was all in, her enthusiasm matching mine. She sketched ideas, weaving the tree's shape into the design, talking about sustainable materials and natural light. She suggested using the trunk as the central pillar, letting the branches thread through the rooms like veins. It was brilliant. We spent hours refining blueprints, picking finishes, dreaming up details. It felt like being a kid again, plotting the ultimate hideout. The treehouse was going to be a masterpiece, a love letter to my oak and a middle finger to the HOA. Lydia got it, and she was just as pumped as I was. The design was set. Lydia had crafted a stunner, but there was one hurdle left: permits. The HOA wasn't going to let this slide without a fight, so I had to be flawless. I marched into the city planning department with Lydia's blueprints, detailed specs, and a truckload of patience. I chatted up clerks, inspectors, anyone who'd listen, pitching my project as safe, sustainable, and code-compliant. It was a slog: forms, fees, endless delays. Building permits, electrical permits, plumbing permits. Yep, even for a treehouse. And, right on cue, the HOA tried to sabotage me. They bombarded the city with letters, whining that the treehouse was unsafe, ugly, and a blight on their precious aesthetic. They even dug up some obscure rule about excessive canopy coverage. Please. They showed up at hearings, all sanctimonious and petty, but I was ready. I had every document in order: engineer-stamped plans, arborist reports proving the tree's health, even a scale model showing how it blended with the neighborhood. I dismantled their arguments with facts, logic, and a dash of snark. In the end, the city approved every permit. The HOA's tantrum failed. Victory, small but sweet. Nothing could stop me now. Construction kicked off, and it was no small feat. This wasn't some rickety kid's fort. It was a luxury treehouse, a sprawling canopy castle. Cranes hoisted massive beams, carpenters swarmed, electricians and plumbers wired and piped. The design hugged the oak's trunk, with levels fanning out into the branches. Sustainable wood and huge windows made it blend with the tree, while a spiral staircase, balcony, and custom lights screamed extravagance. There was even a kitchenette and bathroom, because why half-ass a dream? Watching it come together was unreal, like a puzzle locking into place, the tree woven into every inch. Months later, it was done, my glorious, ridiculous masterpiece. The HOA? They were apoplectic. As the treehouse took shape, their reactions were pure theater. Mrs. Henderson, the HOA president, was the ringleader, practically vibrating with rage. I'd catch her pacing my yard, muttering about property values and standards, looking like she might pop a vein. She fired off letters, legal threats, fines, the works, calling it a hazard and an eyesore. She pestered the city, the inspectors, anyone she could bully. But my permits were ironclad, my build legit. She had nothing. Meanwhile, the neighbors? They went from shocked to amused to obsessed. They saw the craftsmanship, the rebellion, the sheer fun of it. It became their treehouse, a quirky badge of honor for our little corner of Pinewood Heights. It turned into a local sensation. Cars slowed to gawk, kids gaped, adults grinned. Treehouse parties popped up, potlucks in the branches, drinks on the balcony. The HOA fumed, but their protests only fueled its fame. Then they tried a new angle: unruly. Another letter claimed it was too big, too tall, an arboreal monstrosity ruining their clean aesthetic. I laughed. An arboreal monstrosity? It was a treehouse, not a kaiju. I fired back with a polite, sarcastic reply, attaching my permits, plans, and photos proving it was a gem. Striking, don't you think? I wrote. They didn't respond. They couldn't. Then, the kicker: property values rose. Real estate agents started billing Pinewood Heights as the treehouse neighborhood, a unique draw. People moved in because of it. The HOA's doom and gloom predictions imploded. It was a gold mine, and they were stuck with it. Poetic justice served leafy and tall. But they weren't done. Realizing they couldn't kill my treehouse, they tried to ban future ones. Mrs. Henderson called a special meeting to amend the bylaws, rallying her minions with flyers and door-knocking, painting my creation as a blight. They figured the neighbors would back them. Who'd want a street full of treehouses, right? Wrong. The meeting was packed, and when the vote came, the residents, my treehouse fans, shut it down. A landslide no. The HOA was stunned. Their power trip had backfired, and the treehouse lovers had won. It didn't stop there. Fed up with years of petty rules and meddling, the residents turned the tables. They didn't just kill the ban, they ousted the whole HOA board. Mrs. Henderson and her crew were gone, replaced by folks who actually cared about the neighborhood, not control. My treehouse stood tall, a permanent fixture, a tourist draw, a symbol of defiance and joy. Property values soared. Pinewood Heights became the coolest suburb around, and me? I was the guy who beat the HOA with a really, really awesome treehouse. Every glance at it, my oak, my castle, made me smile. Small victory? Sure. But damn, it felt good.